Okay, thanks everybody and welcome to the next panel. I'm very happy today to be surrounded by such distinguished guests with very good and practical knowledge, which we hope to extract and impart with you today. So we've got a mixture of both technical and also from a side of a system integrator. So it should be a very balanced and interesting discussion. And it's pretty interesting for me being back in Riyadh. I came here first time in 1999 selling 3D graphics to Saudi television. So things have moved on a lot since then, and we're going to try and extract some really useful practical tips from the guys here today. And one thing that we've always seen is that the Kingdom has been a very interesting market as a consumer of global content and global IP. But as we move forward, we see the Kingdom getting involved in huge sporting events, huge live events. So rather than becoming a consumer, we look to see them becoming an exporter of content, production, and IP. So when we look at that and what we need to build for the future, and this is what we want to discuss with the guys today, is what is it we're building out for the future of the Kingdom, and how will that work from a production perspective, from a cloud perspective, from an AI perspective, from a remote production perspective. So without further ado, I'm going to try and run into that and start with the team here. I know Omran's got a lot to say and a lot of practical experience. So I'm going to really start with Omran and say, Omran, we're building out a future. Are we building out for project base, or are we building out an infrastructure with capability for long-term projects for the Kingdom? How do you see the Kingdom building out? Oh.
Hello.
Hello. Yes. Hi. Okay. Thank you very much for this panel, actually. In general, from the strategic perspective, I believe at the scale of mega events, like what's happening in Riyadh, for example, on KSA in general, like Riyadh season, e-sport, Saudi League, FIFA in the future, and production company ambitions, I believe broadcasters in the region, and mainly in KSA, they cannot afford build event-specific projects. Therefore, the best sustainable model is to build regional scale production platform, which, like, in order to be reused and have resiliency and always ready to be used in the future and to be centralized in between cities.
Okay, yeah, very good. And I know you've got some practical experience around that.
Yeah.
Going to Stuart, obviously, Stuart, you're from a global system integrator and you see a lot of things happening across the world. How, in your position, from almost like advisory to people, how do you take the market in the Kingdom and MENA in general when you're speaking to clients with all the information that you have across the industry?
So, to be fair, it's actually building on exactly what Omran's just said. So what we're seeing here is a fundamental shift in KSA, really, towards exactly that. It's away from project-based infrastructure and going to that kind of national scale production capability. And what's centered to that, which we're seeing everywhere as part of this whole movement, really, when we're talking scale, is remote production. And for me, that's now actually, it's not even questionable if it should be. It is, because for me, it's the economic value and model that we look at. So if you look at remote production, actually, it's critical because it changes the economics. Okay? Yes, it reduces travel, it reduces on-site crew, it increases asset reuse, but fundamentally as well, it allows for a centralized talent. Talent in a market where it's still very high priority here.
Yeah.
It allows centralized talent to work on multiple productions. And if we just take a quick example, if you look at Tamania in the region, okay, effectively they stood up a fully operational production environment in less than 12 weeks.
Wow.
That was effectively software-led and cloud-enabled. That speed, well, basically would have been impossible with a kind of traditional broadcast build, effectively.
100%, yeah.
And don't forget, on top of that as well, if you want to add the argument, then IP is there, and it's still a critical one that's actually an enabler as well in that space for it. So yes, obviously IP then can help you decouple that kind of location versus production, but once you have that, once you have those signals and that control and obviously that monitoring, you start to realize that you don't have the kind of restrictions you had before around fixed, let's say, broadband routing or kind of static kind of facilities in some ways like that. So yeah, the quick answer is basically what is, in terms of remote production, making it viable, it's exactly this. It's in that design of the architecture and how you want to drive it, but you've got to think scale, and that's really where remote production is actually going to be driving that in that space. That's what allows resources in whether it's Riyadh, whether it's Jeddah, whether it's Neom, whether it's out there in Cairo. That's really what's going to allow them to work from one kind of main ecosystem in production.
Okay. And is that something carried across from other markets that you've seen, or is something unique in the region, given the size of the kingdom?
The acceleration here is what's unique, I think, around it, because we have this opportunity really to not fall into some of the legacy build that we've had previous. Yes, I know we're going to come to it, there is gaps around how fast that can go.
Perfect.
But generally, that's obviously where this market can take the advantage.
Brilliant. And seeing as he's mentioned your company and the 12 weeks, was that all smooth going? Is there anything you'd like to add to that?
No, it was a big challenge, and only being in the region for 4 months now, but having a 10-year experience in centralizing and IP technology for broadcast, I think this market, especially the Saudi market, is the kid's example what you can use this technology for. We've got a great, very big region that we can cover. We've got a very rapid growing region, rapidly changing region, and also a project starts today for tomorrow, a very agile region. And that's exactly hitting all the points where IP can be great. And therefore we at Alamea believe strongly in building a centralized location to do those things.
Yeah, brilliant. Very good. And Dom, turning to you, obviously one of the bigger groups in the region. How do the NBC Group address all of these things now?
All right. Good morning, everybody. I'm going to mirror what the guys have said. I think the desire in the region is 100% there, and we see huge progress around infrastructure. But in terms of where we are now, we still see the use of bespoke companies to create one-off events, right? People are still heavily reliant on OB trucks. They're reliant on temporary satellites and microwave links. Integrators are doing bespoke work. We're shipping talent in from outside of the kingdom, right? So I think all of these things are still happening. We're seeing improvements everywhere across the kingdom, which is amazing to see, right? We're seeing the emergence of media hubs that are capable of hosting multiple events. We're seeing infrastructure improved. We are, I'm going to say, 2 months away from seeing 2 of the world's biggest cloud providers opening regions up within the kingdom, which is amazing news for everybody and helps us to build resilience into our platform, and it gives us options, which is great. And we're even seeing universities and colleges offering courses and education for broadcast engineers, for DevOps and media engineering. So all of these things are happening. They're just probably not happening at the pace that we would like to see it, to be confident that we can get to a place where we have reusable infrastructure and repeatable workflows. The desire is there, but we're still not there yet.
Yeah, and that's a good segue into the next question. which I'd like to ask Omran, and we spoke briefly on the phone about this. So from a tech director's point of view, we've spoken about how things can look, but from your perspective, what are the real gaps in operations today that you feel? I think Dom mentioned a few there, but from your perspective and work in daily life, what do you see?
From my perspective, I believe
Do you want
Hello?
Yes.
From the engineering perspective in general, or from the strategic perspective, I believe here we are not talking about technology only, because the operating models will be more critical than the technology, select the technology part. Because if you have operating models wrong, whatever technology you have this will not save you at all. Therefore, I believe in the region, and specifically in Riyadh, because already we implemented several projects in Riyadh. Still, we have critical gaps. Actually, we have a gaps in term of, let's say, if we talk about mega events. Yes, we have obese gaps. I'm not talking about flat or the capacity. We talk about the class of OBV. Means we have issue with the number of OB who has the high-end UHD, HDR, Dolby's, IP gateways. In order to have platform and set of projects, you should have capability of OBs who has remote production in terms to be connected to the central facility in order to share the crews, share the technology, share the facilities. And mainly, I believe the second gaps is we talk about maybe network resiliency in the infrastructure. In terms of connectivity between cities. I'm not expert what exactly exists in Riyadh on KSA, but I believe they need to have more studies and evaluation of the infrastructure between cities.
Okay. So is moving video across?
Moving whatever, yes.
Yeah, it's still
data, signals, whatever you need to be controlled from the subject we are talking about. We're talking about platforms.
Yes.
Means when you talk about platforms instead of events against projects, means you have to build centralized infrastructures and connect this. Means centralized infrastructure with the federated MCR in different cities and connected to the event, the mega event, wherever this event exists now.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. And then Gert, obviously you've worked a lot in OBs and remote production, and you've set up your centralized area. The connectivity, is it cost prohibitive here yet, or is it getting into a good space where it's economical to have this as well?
To be honest, over the past 10 years, I've seen that connectivity is the essential part and the essential cost in this model. So if the connectivity cost is too high, people will not get rid of their satellite trucks and of their OB vans. So my message to whoever can change this, she was on stage earlier, is help us with affordable connectivity. If we have affordable connectivity, this market can blossom like no market has ever blossomed before. We have, as I said, the child example of where we can do this technology, where we can make this technology happen, where we can make things happen. I honestly believe that, as my colleague on the left said, the talent is in the country. We can train people. We can train people to become IP broadcast engineers. But the key, essential, and that's something that our industry needs help in, is this connectivity issue.
Yeah, I'd agree. That's a very good point. And when you hear all of this, Stuart, how do you factor these in commercially to when you're providing advice or building out some of these solutions?
Like a blatant pitch of what we do here, but it comes down to the design really, and the thinking beforehand. Nobody likes it when whether it's a vendor or an SI comes along with a change request bill and says, hey, we didn't think about this, we didn't think about that. So actually, the investment case should be actually up front in actually designing, working with what we have and how we want to make it work with what we've got to scale to the point you want it to be in that space. So for me, for advice for this territory is that, yeah, it does need to be modular, okay? Ideally, if we're going to be thinking of that scale from before, it needs to be software kind of enabled to a large degree as well, but also designed to, let's say, degrade gracefully over networks that are imperfect. So I think that's the actual challenge, not the technology itself.
Brilliant, thank you. And then back to Dom. We're going to talk a little bit about cloud now. And probably back, I think, in 2017 with Anas in Imagine, we started doing cloud installations. So has cloud, since sort of those sort of late 2017, 2018, really started to deliver measurable value in MENA? And at any point, has it introduced more friction into the business, or how do you see it as benefiting what you've done in MBC?
I mean, we see the shift to cloud as almost an inevitability, right? It's more of a question about when it's going to happen. Of course, there's always friction points around cloud, and people have been talking about them for some time. Last mile delivery, latency, CDN capacity within the kingdom, tie-in and incompatibilities between cloud vendors, particularly around media services, and talent, as we've all said, right? Trying to cross-train broadcast engineers into DevOps skills and media engineering. It is timely and causes friction, but there's so many benefits to cloud as a broadcaster, and at NBC, obviously, we are a traditional satellite broadcaster, but we do, of course, also have a streaming platform, the NBC Shahid platform, which, without cloud would not exist. We use cloud across the business for many critical functions: remote production, remote edit, remote QC. The days of waiting for huge video files to download over Aspera are hopefully long gone in a distant memory, and that brings operational efficiencies to your business, right? We can just execute things much more quickly. But of course, we're using it for storage and archive. We are using cloud for ad tech and monetization. There's a huge host of areas where you can use it. Cloud is great for driving innovation into your organization, right? There's so many tools out there offered on SaaS models that you can bring in. You can spin up proof of concepts very, very quickly. There's huge advantages to using cloud, but you need to be strategic about it. Of course, for us, one of the biggest advantage is just scale, the ability to scale up and down of your platform. So we are, less than 2 weeks away from the holy month of Ramadan at NBC. We know that means there will be a surge of demand for our platform. NBC makes a lot of content specifically for the month of Ramadan. And every year, we see a huge influx of people coming to consume that content, particularly on the digital platform. So we will typically see an increase in concurrent views somewhere between 5 to 10 times what we would see outside of that month. So cloud gives us that ability to rapidly scale up the platform. And after Ramadan, scale it back down again. Of course, we would love for those customers to stay with us for longer, but the inevitability is, we know, many only come for that month. So to be able to scale up your platform and maintain stability and then scale it back down again to reduce costs is incredibly useful. And to do that with traditional on-prem infrastructure would basically mean for 11 months of the year, I would have infrastructure sat around waiting for Ramadan, which makes no economic sense and no common sense.
Yeah, very good. And Gert, you find the same in your operations? Will you use it in somehow different ways?
I do agree greatly with what Dominic says. I think cloud is the next step. But there's one side note I want to make. I was working when all of a sudden some airplanes crashed in New York and the internet was down. And I was working on servers in the US. So therefore, that having lived through that moment and being unable to do anything for a week has made me realize that the cloud isn't holy. So I am a strong believer of having, as Dominic says, the base capacity inland on decent connectivity and being able to expand to the cloud whenever you need. If you need more processing power for something or more storage, you can temporarily rent it in the cloud. Use this as a kind of business model where you OPEX only when you need it. But your base CAPEX, I honestly still believe that needs to be on premise.
Keep it in-house, yeah. Yeah. And do you do the same, Omran, in your facility?
I have like a different opinion about the cloud because I don't believe it's next setup. It's now matured enough, and there's the tools which we can evaluate it as we are as a broadcasters, as we evaluate the normal infrastructure. Because now, as we know that it's tools to help us to solve all our business problems, which now if we consider it from the broadcast corner, I believe now we have like 3 steps for the clouds. We have to consider it. It's as if we are able to build our whole infrastructure in the cloud, what we did with the Thamania with the help of our system integrators Quest, we built a full infrastructure for Thamania with the 13 channels based on the cloud infrastructure AWS, which, okay, we have some challenge in terms, what Dom mentioned, that yes, we have challenge on the latencies, we have challenge in terms of operation efficiencies, but the main performance and if we balancing between performance and cost, we see that the scalability, which for this kind of projects in Riyadh is good, will help a lot of, will help the broadcasters to find the solution immediately within short time. This big benefits for us. I'm not saying that broadcasters now we should go immediately and start building on pure cloud native. No, even this one is not now ready 100%. Yes. And if we go with for the on-prem, everything to build on-prems as well will not be scalable enough, even if you go with the 2110. But the best options, I see it in Middle East or in Saudi Arabia for the coming projects. I believe it's the hybrid infrastructures, which this one will make the balance between cost, between scalability, between reliabilities, and meet our target for the future operation.
Yeah, that's great. And I was going to say, Stuart, you know, when you're talking to potential clients, how do you start? What do you look at? Do you look at these hybrid models?
I wanted
as
to just basically build on both Dominic and Omran's points from different points. But the first thing to answer quickly is hybrid. It's not a compromise. You know, it is actually a solution. Just because we talk about cloud, we think is it in or is it out? No, hybrid actually is a solution. Okay, and it shouldn't be seen as a compromise. Again, it comes back down to the design and what we want to work with and how you want to do it. To Dominic's point, most organizations understand the strategic value of cloud. Okay, from a Quest point of view, I think sadly sometimes they start that journey though as a technology project, when actually it's a business transformation. If you think it's just a lift and shift, you're going to do exactly what you do today in the same way. No, you're not taking full advantage of the new technology and the tools that are now being offered to you in that space. And the ones that are succeeding here, the winners, are the ones who come at it with a real, either a commercial or a product objective. Okay, they get buy-in from the CFO on an OPEX quite early on as well, which is quite key, and they think about the skills and the integration from day one.
Mm-hmm.
But just really quickly, the business framing is really key, actually, in the organization when you're thinking about cloud. And what I mean by that is it's about the objective. And as I said, the ones who come at it with either a product or a commercial objective succeed better. Whether that is, I don't know, maybe personalized advertising or quicker SVOD launches, mm-hmm. or elastic live events. Cloud is the enabler, not the objective.
Oh, that's really good and really interesting to get that feedback, and looking at people not going fully cloud and the hybrid model. I think works like almost like you wouldn't go maybe a fully electric car here. A hybrid one is probably a better solution if you're covering a large geography. So really good feedback. And now we've spoken about cloud. We're not fully cloud, but now we move even further, and now we start to introduce AI to people's businesses. And I'm going to start with Dom on AI. Me as a person, I quite like it from our marketing agency that we run on a production side of things, and I think my colleague's going to be on the next panel. And it's working well for us there. But in a broadcast, a newsroom or production workflow, is anybody deploying AI? Is it something you're looking at? And is there any real cases for it yet? And I'll start with you, Dom, and then I'll move to Gert.
AI, it's become such an emotive word, right? In a lot of organizations, a lot of people are seeing the values and starting to understand the concepts of what AI can bring. I think it's very easy for organizations to almost become overwhelmed with the breadth and the depth of the options, and one of the challenges is around prioritizing where you look first. I think it's hugely important as an organization you have a cohesive strategy around AI tied into your organizational goals, tied against KPIs, and really focus on return on investment, because there is a lot of stuff out there that is very cool, right? It looks very, very cool, but in terms of bringing back tangible return on investment, there's less. That said, at NBC, we are using AI throughout the organization across a plethora of areas, and it's a lot of the stuff that you'd expect, right? We are using AI to create sports clip highlights automatically from sports shows. We are using AI to generate short-form content from long-form content. We're using AI in recommendations, in personalization, metadata enrichment. We're using it in CRM for targeted marketing. We're using it for a whole host of different regions, and we're seeing good results from it. But if I was going to pick one example that we're focused on right now that I think is a great indication of what AI can do, it's probably going to be localization. So NBC are one of, if not the largest creators of Arabic content in the world. We're proud of what we create. We create some amazing content. Now, our core market, of course, is the Middle East, but we believe this content travels and is viable and applicable to be sold in other markets. Now, the problem with that is localization, and traditionally, your options were twofold: subtitling. And in a lot of countries, particularly in Europe and in the Americas, people fundamentally don't like subtitling. Or, of course, dubbing. And again, dubbing is slow, dubbing is expensive. And, of course, people do not like the lip sync issues that you always get, right? And that deters a lot of people. And that fundamentally impacts how saleable our content is. So we are working with a couple of companies right now around localization using AI. And the technology has evolved at such a pace that they can take our content that has been filmed and shot in Arabic, and the AI will translate it it will replace the actors' voices with different languages and proper humanized voices. They sound legitimate, and it will overlay the video with lip synchronization, right? So it genuinely looks as though the content has been shot in that language. Why this is so important for us is, firstly, AI-generated dubbing is significantly faster than traditional dubbing. It's significantly cheaper than traditional dubbing, and it allows us to monetize our content in regions where we were unable to penetrate previously. So we get a return on investment for our content, operational efficiencies, and cost savings, and it will allow us to drive incremental revenue into the business. So I struggle to think of a better example of where AI is truly adding real value into a broadcaster or content creators.
Yeah, that's a really good point, I think, and certainly on those dialects, we've done some stuff around agents that can speak in multiple dialects, and it's unbelievable, and it's very fast as well. So yeah, that's probably a really good business.
It's quite. If you're used to seeing certain actors or actresses, watching them speak fluent Portuguese can be quite unnerving, but the technology is amazing.
Yeah, incredible. And I know we spent some time on this subject as well, so I'd be really happy to get your input on what Dom's just said and your own view as well.
Well, I think AI as the hybrid model, a solution to issues that we have. AI can bring us everything that we're now doing in a very difficult workflow. It can ease that workflow. So again, I honestly believe that AI is a tool we can use, but we must use it with the human brain behind it and check it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. And it takes industry experts like yourself to be able to challenge what AI spits out sometimes, right? If you don't have the experience and you just trust what's coming back from AI, you're not always in a position to challenge it. So I think it's really, this moment that we're in is very important that experts like yourself are able to validate what actually AI is doing.
Exactly, yeah.
And then, Stuart, I mean, obviously, in business, I'm sure you get 1 million people come up to you, we need to do everything AI, and how do you approach it? Because this is a subject that comes regularly in transformation projects. We need to shift our business to AI, and for me, that's never where you start.
No, exactly that. And so yeah, obviously a large part of Quest is obviously not just the SI, it's the consultancy and the advisory part of our business, and obviously that works globally as well. The phrase that and Omran's heard me say this probably in his office as well, and the clients out there, is I always say, when we talk about AI, I always start with saying, just because you could, doesn't mean you should, until you know exactly what the business case is that you're trying to fix with this. What's the problem statement? What's the solution you're trying to drive? Because as opposed to telling you what the benchmarks of success would look like, because I think Dominic's already mentioned that, I'll tell you 3 of the pain points that people don't expect when you think, hey, let's just do AI, it's going to fix our problems. Okay, so there are 3 kind of significant pain points that people need to think about if we're going to start this journey. That's how we would approach it. Number 1 is the overinvestment. Okay, just because you can get an off the shelf, there are many options right now of different AI tools that you can drive into your organization. But you've got to think of how you're going to integrate them and scale them across what you need to do, the business case I talked about, in your organization. And sometimes there is a huge overinvestment in trying many products that don't actually fully fit both the environment or the way you're trying to drive them in the organization. An amazing statistic last year from NVIDIA was saying that actually only 20% of POCs in AI proceed to be fully adopted in an organization. That means 80% of investments fail, and then what? They stop? No, then they'll invest in something else and something else. So again, it comes back down to what I mentioned earlier, which is we've got to think about the design here and how you want to be using it before you could fall into the trap of maybe overinvestment. The second play then is obviously sometimes it's the hidden cost of implementation. Just because then you found the tool that you would like to use in your organization, how is it going to scale it? Is it going to scale it? Have you put enough kind of budget aside to think about how you want to fully integrate this into the organization and make it work fully? And then the last pitfall that we try to get people to think about also is the ironic one, which is actually productivity lag. You think, oh, great, we've got a new tool, let's apply it. It's AI, it's going to make productivity go straight up. But actually, no, sometimes you'll find that the productivity goes down when you apply a new tool into an organization. And maybe that is just because the change management, the training, the adoption of how it's going to be used, there's many things to think about. So there are three kind of pain points that are quickly overlooked when you're thinking about wanting to just jump out there and try it. So again, just because you could, doesn't mean you should until you've got the full business case as to what you want to drive.
Yeah, no, it's a really good point, and that whole people change, cultural thing can put up a lot of barriers unless you get your communication right properly, because that whole fear of I'm losing my job is quite a real one for many people. So yeah, I think, very valid points, and it's really good that you communicate that. So yeah, I think our sessions, we're getting close to the end, so really thank you so much. I'm going to put a final question to everybody on the panel now. So if you are a Saudi broadcaster today and you need to make one strategic decision to ensure your longevity for the next 2 to 3 years to get your business right, what is that? And I'll start with Omran.
From the strategic perspective, the most important decisions is to build a broadcast models, infrastructure model, scalable models to be reused, to be scalable, and change the thinking strategy from project perspective to platform perspective. That's it.
Very good. Stuart?
One piece of advice then would be to get your architecture philosophy right. And by that I mean think of both, it's a global, it's not, but specifically if we come to M&E, the digital transformation is taking place. So there's a full architecture to think about here, and none of them can be done in isolation. It is a philosophy. So we've talked about AI, okay? That generally won't exist to the full extreme of what you'll get from it unless you have a cloud strategy underneath. Hybrid or not, but there needs to be some sort of strategy built behind that. Underneath that, if you really want to make sure you kind of collapse in that supply chain between content creation and the audience base, IP is going to come into that space to drive the scale that we've talked about a little bit earlier. And again, it all falls underneath each other because that can't be done without then thinking of, is it OTT, is it app-based, so what's the audience experience ultimately? And you can't drive any of that unless you think about the process management, the change management, the training, and the overall workflow that you're going to drive.
Very good. Gert, some final thoughts from yourself?
I agree with the two speakers here. So it's a whole process that you are in. I would like to use this time to ask all the parties in the room to work together on getting this industry connected to each other so we can use the technology that is at hand. We have it in our hands, it is working, to use it at a maximum strength to the benefit of all of us.
Fantastic. And then finally, Dom, because I know your plane's going to be leaving shortly.
My plane is leaving shortly. I mean, look, I agree with what the other panelists have said. One of the questions you get asked a lot as a CTO is, what are your biggest challenges? And I think people are often surprised by the answers, so I don't know if I'm being controversial here in my recommendation, but my answer, people expect me to say last mile delivery, cloud costs, and it's really not. It's people. It's always people, right? Technology is binary. It works or it doesn't work. If it doesn't work, there's normally a logical set of steps to determine why. People are illogical. They have egos. They have ambition. And the technology is utterly pointless unless you have a good, solid team surrounded by you. So my recommendation would be focus on people, pull together a strategy, recruit the right people with the right skill sets, recruit for emerging technologies, bring in cloud engineers, bring in DevOps people, bring in people who understand AI, people who understand data, like surround data engineers, because these people will become increasingly important in your business moving forward. And we work in a competitive field, and this is an incredibly competitive region. So attracting talent, retaining talent is one of the biggest challenges I think that we face, right? So Focus on your people, keep your people happy, recruit good people, train them up, because they are the people who will execute on the plans, and without them, the technology is superfluous.
Brilliant, thank you. And thanks everybody for your contributions. I hope for the audience that was some really practical tips and useful advice. I think we're learning from what everybody said that the Kingdom is going for its global growth strategy. We're looking at cloud hybrid environments at the moment, some experiments on AI. It's great to hear when we talk about people that the Kingdom's actually setting up university courses so people can come into this industry, enjoy this industry, and then really sort of take the Kingdom to an international market. And one thing working against it, I think we spoke about, and it was a big message, was connectivity costs across the region, so we need to look at that. But thanks everybody for listening, and thanks again to the wonderful panel